Welcome, sweet friend. This video is made to help you enter deep sleep and relaxation. Together, we will practice a cocoon meditation along with a guided sleep story, and then as you doze off, you can listen to a soft and cozy bedtime story. Let's begin by letting your day loosen its grip, just a little, right here. Find a position that feels kind to your body, whether you're on your back, your side, or nestled into a favorite corner of the bed. If it helps you settle, you can place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly, like a gentle reminder that you are here and you are safe. Before we go any further, I want you to know you don't have to do this perfectly. There is no right way to relax, and there is nothing you need to fix tonight. You're allowed to arrive exactly as you are, with a busy mind, a tired body, or a heart that's been carrying too much. If you'd like, leave a quick comment about where you're listening from tonight, because I love knowing you're out there. And if something has been keeping you awake, you can share that too, in just a few simple words. Sometimes naming it gently is like setting a heavy bag down by the door so you don't have to carry it into sleep. Now let's create a soft boundary between today and rest. Imagine there is a quiet line drawn in the air, like a warm ribbon of light, and you are stepping over it. On one side is the day with its tasks and noise, and on the other side is a calm space made only for you. Take a slow breath in through your nose, as if you're breathing in a gentle, clean night air. Hold it for a comfortable moment, not straining, just pausing. Then let the breath out slowly, like you're exhaling a long, quiet sigh from the bottom of a warm cup of tea. Again, breathe in and let your shoulders float up just a tiny bit. And as you breathe out, let your shoulders melt down, as if gravity is finally allowed to be helpful. Notice how your body understands how to soften, even if your thoughts are still moving. Tonight, you are entering a safe cocoon. Not a tight or confining cocoon, but a spacious, cozy one that fits you perfectly. A cocoon made of comfort, calm, and quiet protection, like a gentle hush wrapped around you. Picture the cocoon forming slowly, the way warm steam gathers on a window without rushing, It begins at the edges of the room, like soft light collecting in the corners. It moves closer in a calm, steady way, until you can feel a subtle sense of held without any pressure at all. This cocoon is made of layers, and every layer is friendly. The first layer is warmth, like a blanket that already knows your shape. The second layer is quiet, like the moment after you close a door and the world becomes softer. The third layer is permission. Permission to rest, permission to pause, permission to be unfinished. And the fourth layer is safety, the kind of safety that tells your nervous system, you can stop scanning now. As you breathe, imagine the cocoon gently brightening, like a dim lamp turning to the lowest, coziest setting. The light is not sharp, not white, not loud, but warm and muted, like honeyed moonlight. It doesn't demand attention, it simply exists to soothe you. Now bring your attention to the top of your head. Imagine a small wave of softness moving across your scalp, smoothing away any tightness you didn't realize you were holding. Let your forehead relax and allow the space between your eyebrows to widen like a gentle unfurrowing. Let your eyes rest in their sockets, heavy and comfortable, like they've been waiting all day to settle. If your eyelids flutter, that's okay, because your body is simply switching into a quieter gear. Let your cheeks soften and unclench your jaw, as if your mouth can rest open by a millimeter in complete peace. Now notice your tongue and let it rest easily, no effort, no pressing. Relax the muscles around your ears and imagine the sound of the world turning down to a whisper. Even if there are noises around you, your cocoon can filter them, like soft curtains over a window. Bring your attention to your neck and throat. Let this area feel open and safe, as if you no longer have to swallow back the day. You can release what you didn't get to say, and you can release what you said too much of, and let it all drift away. Now we move to your shoulders, those faithful shelves that carry so much. Imagine them loosening like knots in a ribbon, slowly untying with every exhale, Let them fall into a natural position, supported by the bed, supported by gravity, supported by rest. Feel your arms growing heavier in the best way. Let your upper arms soften, your elbows loosen, your forearms relax like warm cloth. Allow your hands to rest without performing, without gripping, without preparing. If your fingers want to curl slightly, let them. If your palms want to open, let them. Either way, your hands can finally retire for the night, like gentle workers clocking out. Now bring attention to your chest. Notice the rise and fall, the simple truth that your body keeps caring for you, breath after breath. Let your heart be exactly what it is tonight, because it's allowed to beat at its own honest rhythm. If there is emotion here, we're not pushing it away. We're just letting it sit in a soft chair, like a guest who doesn't have to tell the whole story. You can be kind to yourself without solving everything, and that kindness is enough. Now feel your belly and let it be soft. You don't have to hold it in, and you don't have to brace. Imagine your breath moving into your belly like warm water filling a small basin, steady and calm. As you exhale, imagine the day draining out. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, like water slipping through sand. Each breath out can carry a little tension away, the way a tide takes small footprints back to the sea. Now, inside your cocoon, there is a special pocket of space meant for worries. Picture a small shelf or a bowl or a velvet-lined box waiting nearby. You don't have to examine your worries. You only have to place them somewhere safe for tomorrow. Choose one worry, just one, and imagine setting it gently into that space. You are not throwing it away, and you are not ignoring it. You are simply postponing it with care. Tell yourself, not tonight, the way you might tell a friendly visitor. We'll talk again soon. Now choose another thought that keeps circling and place it down too. Let it land without judgment, like a leaf resting on still water. and feel your inner space become a little quieter, a little more open, a little more breathable. Now we move down into your hips and lower back. These places often hold the leftovers of effort, the subtle bracing, the quiet endurance. As you exhale, imagine a warm hand of comfort smoothing across your lower back, telling it to soften. Let your hips feel heavy and supported. Let the bed hold you the way a calm shoreline holds a boat, steady and sure. You do not have to hold yourself up anymore, because tonight you are held. Now your thighs can loosen. Let your knees relax and let your calves soften as if they are slowly unwinding after a long walk. Feel your legs becoming pleasantly warm and still, like they are sinking into a safe, cozy sand. Bring attention to your ankles and feet. Let your feet rest and imagine they are releasing tiny stored tensions through the soles, like a gentle exhale from the earth. If your toes want to spread or curl, let them move once and then settle. Now take a deeper breath in, but keep it soft, not forced. And on the exhale, imagine the cocoon responding, thickening with comfort, becoming even more protective and calm. It's as if your breath is weaving the cocoon stronger, thread by thread, with quiet steadiness. This cocoon is not only around you, it is also within you. It wraps around your thoughts, softening their edges, like snow softens the shapes of the world outside. It wraps around your feelings, holding them gently, like a warm scarf on a cool night. Now, if your mind tries to wander, that's normal. Minds wander the way candles flicker, and it doesn't mean anything has gone wrong. Each time you notice you've drifted, simply return to your breath with kindness, like guiding a sleepy child back to bed. Imagine there is a small golden zipper on the outside of your cocoon. This zipper doesn't trap you, it simply seals out the noise you don't need. And with each exhale, that zipper closes a little more until the outside world feels far away and quiet. Now imagine your cocoon has a gentle label on it that reads, "Do not disturb." Not as a demand, but as a loving boundary. Tonight, your only task is rest, and even that will happen naturally, like nightfall. Let's soften the breath into an easy rhythm. Inhale for a slow count of 4, if that feels good, and exhale for a slow count of 6. Longer exhales help the body understand it is safe, and your cocoon makes that safety feel even more true. Inhale, and imagine drawing calm in through the center of your chest. Exhale, and imagine releasing the last bits of urgency from your shoulders and belly. Inhale, and feel your body as one connected, supported whole. Exhale, and feel yourself sinking a little deeper into comfort. If sleep comes quickly, we welcome it. If sleep takes time, we welcome that too, because rest is already beginning in your body right now. Inside the cocoon, there is a gentle temperature that is always just right. If you feel too warm, imagine a cool, soothing breeze drifting through, light as a feather. If you feel too cool, imagine the cocoon warming like a blanket fresh from the dryer, soft and safe. Inside the cocoon, your breathing sounds like distant waves, quiet and rhythmic. Inside the cocoon, your heartbeat is like a calm clock, not rushing, just keeping time gently. Inside the cocoon, your thoughts can drift like clouds, passing through without needing to turn into storms. Now imagine your cocoon is resting in a peaceful place. Maybe it's in a moonlit forest clearing, or beside a quiet lake, or in a cozy room with rain tapping softly on a window. Choose the setting that feels most comforting, because your nervous system knows what it needs. In that place, nothing is demanded of you. No one is waiting for your reply. No task is chasing you. No future moment is pulling you forward. There is only this soft present moment and the steady invitation to sink deeper into rest. If you notice a tight spot in your body, we can send the cocoon's warmth there. Imagine a gentle glow moving like a slow spotlight, landing on that tightness with kindness. Then imagine it melting, not because you force it, but because it is finally safe enough to let go. Now bring your awareness back to the simple act of being supported. Feel the pillow supporting your head, the bed supporting your back, the blankets supporting your sense of comfort. Let that physical support become emotional support too, like the world is softly telling you, "I've got you." You have done enough for one day. Even if your mind argues, even if you wish you did more, you are still allowed to rest. Rest is not a reward for perfection. It is a need, and you are worthy of it. Now we'll begin transitioning gently toward the story space, where your imagination can carry you the rest of the way. Your cocoon will come with you, like a portable shelter of calm that you can keep around your heart. And as we drift into that cozy journey, you can let your eyes grow heavier, your breath grow slower, and your thoughts grow quieter. Take one more slow inhale, as if you're breathing in softness itself. And one more long exhale, as if you're breathing out the very last crumb of tension. Now gently, you'll step into a place that lives inside a music box, quiet, glowing, and perfectly safe. As you enter the music box meadow, you won't need to think your way into calm because the melody will slow you. With every gentle turn of the winding key, your thoughts can soften and stretch out, and the little notes of music will drift around you like warm, floating fireflies, guiding you deeper into rest. You step into the music box meadow as if you've always known the way, as if the path has been waiting for you beneath the day's noise and bright edges. The lid of the music box is already open, and inside it, a whole little world is breathing softly, full of quiet wonder and gentle light. The meadow is small enough to feel intimate, but wide enough to hold your thoughts without crowding them. The grass is short and velvety, like a blanket that has learned how to be a landscape. It bends in tiny waves, not from wind exactly, but from the slow movement of music itself, a hush of melody that seems to rise up from the very ground. Above you, there is no sky in the ordinary sense. Instead, the inside of the lid becomes a soft dome of twilight, painted with faint constellations, like a mural someone made while trying not to wake anyone. The stars are quiet and they do not flicker sharply. They glow the way a nightlight glows, steady and kind. The air smells like warm paper and clean cotton, with a hint of wildflower sweetness that feels familiar, even if you cannot name it. It's the scent of something treasured, something kept safe for a long time. It reminds you of drawers lined with lavender sachets and old books that have been loved gently. As you walk further in, you notice the edges of the meadow curve upward slightly, like the world has been cradled in a palm. Along the curved boundary, tiny carved details appear in the wood, delicate vines and leaves etched into the frame of the music box itself. They shimmer as if the carving is alive, as if the music is warming it from the inside. Then you see it, the winding key. It's not towering or heavy. It stands near the center of the meadow like a slender, elegant sculpture, polished and smooth, with a soft golden glow. It's anchored into the earth the way a tree would be anchored, steady and natural, as if it grew there. Around its base, small flowers bloom in a circle, petals shaped like tiny commas, as if they're pauses you can step into. You approach slowly, and with every step, the music becomes clearer, not louder, just more present. It's a melody that doesn't demand attention. It simply offers itself, like a warm cup placed within reach. Near the key, you notice a simple bench made of pale wood, curved in the middle the way a friendly seat would be. There's a folded blanket resting on it, soft and slightly heavy, as if it's filled with the perfect kind of calm. The bench looks like it's expecting you, and there is no pressure in that expectation, only welcome. You sit down, letting your weight settle in a way that feels honest. The blanket is easy to pull over your lap. It drapes like a gentle promise, and you feel your body respond with a quiet sigh, not forced, not dramatic, just the subtle relief of being cared for. The winding key is close enough to touch, and yet it doesn't hurry you. It simply exists, patiently, as if it understands that tonight is for slow things. When you place your hand on the key, you notice how warm it is, as if it's been holding sunlight for you. Your fingers fit around it naturally. The metal is smooth and it feels steady, dependable, like something designed to help. You turn it just a little. The music changes in the most subtle way, like the melody takes a deeper breath. The tempo slows by a fraction, and you realize your thoughts slow with it, as if they are being gently guided into a calmer rhythm. In the meadow, tiny lights begin to lift into the air. They are not sparks, and they are not sharp. They look like musical notes that have become fireflies, little floating symbols made of soft gold and pale pearl. A treble clef drifts by like a ribbon in water. A quarter note glides upward with the lazy confidence of a drifting leaf. They blink slowly, not flashing, just glowing and dimming like a steady heartbeat. You watch them, and something in your mind stops trying so hard. The notes move in gentle patterns, swirling in slow spirals that match the music's pace. They don't have to go anywhere. They simply float, and you feel the permission in that, the permission to exist without rushing. You turn the key again slightly. The meadow responds like a living thing. The grass becomes a little softer beneath your feet, even though you're still seated. The air becomes a little warmer, like a room after a candle has been burning for a while. The melody stretches out, longer between beats, longer between moments, and your breathing begins to follow without being told. Inhale, and the notes rise. Exhale, and the notes drift lower, settling toward the flowers, touching the petals like gentle kisses before lifting again. You look down at the circle of flowers around the base of the key. Each one has a center that glows faintly, and as you watch, you realize the centers pulse with the same slow rhythm as the music. It feels like the meadow is reassuring you in a language that doesn't need words. You let your shoulders soften. The blanket on your lap feels heavier in the best way, like it's anchoring you to comfort. The bench holds you without any stiffness, supportive and kind. A pathway appears in the grass, not suddenly, but gradually, as if it's being revealed by moonlight. It curves away from the quay toward a small rise in the meadow, a little hill no taller than a gentle wave. Along the path, the firefly notes drift like lanterns, spaced just far enough apart to keep everything calm and uncluttered. You stand when you're ready and you walk. Your steps are quiet. The grass muffles sound. Even your thoughts seem to make less noise here, as if they understand the meadow is a place of rest. As you follow the path, you notice little details that feel both whimsical and soothing. There are tiny stones embedded in the earth, each one smooth and pale, like polished moon fragments. Between the stones, small sprouts of clover grow, leaves shaped like tiny hearts. Every so often, you see a small curled ribbon of music paper tucked into the grass, like the meadow is made of melody and memory. When you reach the top of the small hill, you find a cozy hollow on the other side, like a nest created for you. It's lined with soft moss and a scattering of feather-light petals. At the center is a cushion shaped like a rounded cloud, pale and plush, with a faint shimmer, as if it's been brushed with starlight. You sit down, and the cushion yields perfectly, taking the shape of you in a way that feels comforting rather than consuming. It holds you the way a gentle hand might hold the back of your shoulder, steady and reassuring. From this spot you can see most of the meadow. The winding quay stands in the distance like a friendly lighthouse, and the floating notes move in slow, graceful arcs across the scene. The music is still present, and now it sounds like it's coming from everywhere at once, from the grass and the air and the soft sky dome above. You realize you don't need to do anything else. There is nothing to fix here. There is only settling and the quiet feeling of being allowed to rest. A few notes drift close to you and hover at the edge of your vision. They glow softly as if checking in. One looks like a little eighth note, and it bobs up and down as though it's nodding. Another is a tiny staff line, like a quiet ladder made of light. You watch them for a moment, and then you let your eyelids grow heavier, because the meadow is safe enough for that. Even when your eyes close, you can still sense the notes drifting. You can still sense the music moving, slow and steady. The melody feels like it's smoothing out wrinkles inside your mind, easing the tight folds of thought, pressing them gently into something flatter, calmer. In the distance, the winding key turns on its own, just the smallest amount, as if the meadow is tending to itself now. The tempo slows another step, and you feel it in your chest, like your heart is being invited into a softer pattern. The firefly notes respond by drifting lower, closer to the grass. Their glow becomes warmer, more amber, like a lamp turned down low. They begin to settle into the meadow in tiny clusters, like they are tucking themselves in. You feel your body following their example. Your legs feel heavier, settled. Your arms feel loose, no longer holding the day. Your jaw softens and the space behind your eyes feels quiet. If a thought tries to rise, it rises slowly, like a bubble in thick, warm water. It doesn't pop loudly. It just floats up and then dissolves, because the meadow's rhythm doesn't give it anything sharp to cling to. Somewhere nearby, you hear a gentle sound like a page turning, and you realize it's the music itself changing to a new phrase, one that is even more restful. The melody becomes simpler, fewer notes, longer spaces between them. It feels like walking into a room where the lights are already low. A tiny breeze moves through the meadow, and it carries a soft chiming sound, as if the notes are brushing against each other, like wind chimes made of light. The sound is delicate, barely there, but it makes your chest feel warm. In that warmth, you imagine gathering up the last few leftover worries from your day. You don't have to name them. You don't have to replay them. You simply imagine them as little pebbles in your hands, and you can feel how tired your hands are of holding them. In the grass beside your cushion, a small velvet pouch appears, deep midnight blue, embroidered with a single tiny star. The pouch opens as if it's breathing, wide and patient. You drop the pebbles in one by one. They make no sound at all when they land. The pouch absorbs them gently. It seems to say without words that it can hold them for you until morning, and that you are not responsible for them right now. The pouch ties itself closed with a soft ribbon, and then it settles into the moss beside you, like a sleeping animal curling up near your side. You feel lighter. The music slows again, only a little, but you notice. It's like the meadow has an infinite ability to become more calm. The notes in the air begin to drift toward the edges of the meadow, as if the world is becoming quieter by gently moving outward, giving you more space inside. Your breath lengthens. The inhale arrives like a soft wave. The exhale leaves like a long, warm sigh. The firefly notes now glow mostly in the distance, like a quiet constellation hovering at meadow level. Near you, only one or two notes remain, faint and friendly, like guardians that don't keep you awake. The cushion beneath you seems to warm slightly, and you realize it's responding to your body's need for comfort. It's as if the meadow listens to you without you having to speak. You let yourself sink deeper. The sound of the music becomes less like something you hear and more like something you float in. The spaces between notes feel like gentle pillows. The melody wraps around your thoughts and slows them, not by force, but by invitation. At the far edge of the meadow, where the curved wooden frame rises, you see a tiny doorway carved into the wood, barely noticeable, like a secret built for peace. A soft glow spills from it, and you understand without thinking that this is the meadow's way of saying sleep is nearby. You don't have to walk there. You can, but you don't have to. The doorway is simply an option, like the knowledge that rest is available whenever you're ready. For now, you stay right where you are, held by the cushion and the moss and the gentle air. You listen. You breathe. The music continues its slow, steady pattern, and each time it repeats, it feels more familiar, as if your nervous system is learning the tune and deciding it can trust it. The firefly notes begin to land in the grass, turning into tiny points of light that nestle between blades like dew. The meadow is being tucked in, and you are being tucked in with it. Your eyelids are heavy now, comfortably heavy, like curtains that want to close. Your face is smooth, your shoulders low, your belly soft. Your hands rest in a natural position. No gripping, no effort, just being. The melody becomes a lullaby made of fewer and fewer sounds, longer and longer quiet. The notes are still there, but they are spaced out like distant stars. The quiet between them is wide and gentle, and it holds you. You imagine the winding key turning one last time, not by you, but by the meadow itself, as if a kind caretaker is making sure everything is set for the night. The tempo slows to the pace of drifting. The entire music box world becomes a cradle. The meadow around you dims in the softest way. It doesn't go dark abruptly. It simply settles into deeper twilight, like the moment right before you fall asleep when everything becomes a little farther away. The cushion beneath you seems to rise and fall faintly, like it's breathing with you, steady and calm. The blanket of air around you feels smooth. The last few firefly notes glow like small embers, safe and warm. If your mind offers one final thought, you let it pass through like a cloud drifting across a moon. You don't chase it. You don't follow it. You let it float and then you let it fade. The meadow remains gentle and still. The music remains slow and steady. And you drift little by little into sleep. The notes continue to move like fireflies in the distance, but you no longer need to watch them. You can trust them to keep drifting without you, the way night continues even when you close your eyes. Your breathing becomes slower, softer, almost silent. Your body settles into its deepest comfort. Your thoughts become quiet enough to feel like silence. And the music box meadow holds you there, protected, calm, and completely safe until sleep takes you fully. We're easing into a quiet elevator ride that becomes a gentle pause in the middle of the night. For a brief couple of minutes, the world slows down, and a few sleepy neighbors find themselves sharing soft, silly survival stories without needing to make it a big thing. With peppermint tea bags, a potato-shaped stress ball, and a spare sock just in case, comfort shows up in the smallest, sweetest ways as you settle, breathe, and drift along with the calm. For exactly 2 minutes, the elevator would become the coziest little room in the building, and nobody would know that until it happened. It started the way most late evenings started in Mapleview Apartments, with soft hallway lights and the quiet shuffle of slippers. The kind of quiet that made everyone move a little slower, as if the building itself was exhaling. Caleb stepped into the elevator with the careful, polite tiredness of someone who had been on all day. He offered a small nod that meant hello without demanding conversation. 3 neighbors stepped in after him, each carrying that same sleepy end-of-day gentleness. There was Mrs. Delaney, who smelled faintly of laundry soap and warm peppermint, holding a little cloth pouch like it was important paperwork. There was Darren from 4B, wearing a hoodie with a faded astronaut on it, looking like he had just remembered he owned a face. And there was Junie from 2A, who always looked prepared for strange events, as if life frequently got weird around her and she simply adapted. They arranged themselves in that familiar elevator formation that said, "We acknowledge each other, and we will not make it a big thing." Everyone angled their gaze politely toward a different corner, like respectful strangers at a tiny museum exhibit titled Ceiling Panel. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft hush. The ride began normally, a gentle upward float that barely registered. The ceiling light glowed a steady, warm white. The little floor numbers blinked upward with calm confidence. Then the elevator made a sound that can only be described as a polite little bloop. It shivered once, as if it had thought about doing something dramatic and then remembered it lived in a quiet building. And it stopped between floors like it had simply decided this was a good place to pause. The lights stayed on. The air remained perfectly calm. There was no jolt, no drop, no alarm, just an unexpected stillness that suddenly felt a little too noticeable. Caleb's hand drifted toward the button panel on instinct. He pressed the door open button once, gently, like he didn't want to offend it. Nothing happened. He tried the close button as if it might be more cooperative. Still nothing. The elevator remained politely, stubbornly paused, as if it was waiting for someone to acknowledge the moment properly. Darren blinked twice, slowly, the way people do when they want reality to refresh. Mrs. Delaney inhaled and held her breath for a beat, then released it in a careful, quiet exhale. Junie tilted her head like she was listening for the building's opinion. Caleb felt the smallest spark of nervous energy flicker in his chest, and he recognized it immediately. It was the kind of nervousness that loved to bring a whole suitcase to a tiny problem. He decided firmly and kindly that tonight was not the night for that. He let his hand fall away from the panel and softened his shoulders on purpose. Then he offered the gentlest joke he could find, the kind that didn't demand laughter but made room for it. "Well," he said, glancing at the ceiling like it might be in on the plan, "looks like we've booked a 2-minute staycation." For a moment, nobody responded, not because it wasn't funny, but because everyone was checking whether humor was allowed in a situation like this. Then Junie let out a small sound that was half laugh and half sigh, like relief trying to be polite. Darren's mouth twitched into a smile, as if it surprised him to have one available. Mrs. Delaney patted her cloth pouch, visibly reassured by the presence of her own preparedness. "Oh, good," she murmured, "because I did not dress for a full emergency." She looked down at her soft cardigan and slippers as if they were an official uniform for calm, domestic survival. Caleb nodded gravely like an expert. "Same," he said, glancing at his socks, "and my socks are in no condition to be heroic." That earned a proper, quiet chuckle from Darren. The elevator still didn't move, but the air changed. The stillness became less dramatic and more cozy, like a pause button that had been pressed with kind intentions. Caleb looked around at the small group and decided that if they were going to be here for even a short moment, they might as well make it gentle. "Well," he said, keeping his voice low and friendly, "since we're temporarily residents of floor somewhere, I propose a club." Junie's eyes warmed with interest, as if she liked the idea of a club that required zero effort. Darren lifted a brow in sleepy approval. Mrs. Delaney leaned in the tiniest bit, like she was about to hear a secret. Caleb continued, "The 2-minute elevator survival club." He paused, letting the title land, because titles mattered when you were building a tiny moment of comfort. "And the main rule," he added, "is that everyone shares one oddly specific thing that helps them feel calm." Junie's smile widened, like this was her favorite kind of assignment. Darren shifted his weight, suddenly looking pleased to be asked anything at all. Mrs. Delaney lifted her cloth pouch like a winning ticket. "Oh, I'm first," she said with quiet certainty, and her voice carried the gentle authority of someone who had packed snacks for life. "These are peppermint tea bags." She opened the pouch, and indeed, inside were several neatly stacked tea bags, each one like a tiny folded blanket of calm. "I don't even need to brew them," she explained, as if she had delivered this information many times. "I just smell them, and my brain thinks, oh, we're fine, we're having tea, even if we're not." Caleb's eyes softened. "That is surprisingly brilliant," he said, and he meant it. He found himself smiling more than he expected to. Mrs. Delaney offered the pouch toward the center of the elevator like a small peace offering. Junie leaned forward and inhaled politely, and her shoulders dropped a fraction as if the scent had pressed a hidden relax button. Darren sniffed too, then nodded with solemn respect. "Okay," Darren said, suddenly energized by the seriousness of this silly moment. "My turn." He reached into his hoodie pocket with the confidence of a magician about to reveal a very unimpressive trick. He pulled out a small stress ball shaped like a potato. Not potato-like, but unmistakably potato, complete with tiny darker spots that looked like eyes or freckles. Caleb stared at it with the exact expression of someone witnessing an object they didn't know they needed in their life. Junie made a delighted little sound, like she'd found a rare treasure. Darren held it up proudly. "I know," he said, "but it's surprisingly grounding." He squeezed it once, and the potato calmly returned to its shape, as if it had never been bothered. "It's like," Darren continued, lowering his voice as if the potato preferred privacy, "a reminder that some things are just plain." And when things are plain, they're not trying to hurt you. They're just potato. Caleb laughed softly because there was something deeply comforting about that logic. Mrs. Delaney nodded as if she understood the potato on a spiritual level. Junie reached out. "May I?" she asked, and Darren passed it over with care, like it was a small animal. Junie squeezed it once and sighed, the kind of sigh that said her nervous system was amused and relieved at the same time. "Oh, wow," she whispered. "It really is grounding." Caleb took a turn holding the potato, and he was startled by how warm his palm felt around it. It was silly, and it was also effective, which felt like the best kind of bedtime magic. He passed it along to Mrs. Delaney, who squeezed it once and smiled as if the potato had told her everything would be okay. Junie straightened, ready for her own contribution. "Okay, my comfort item is not glamorous," she said, "but it's very committed." She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a single spare sock neatly folded. Caleb blinked, then grinned. Mrs. Delaney's eyebrows lifted with impressed delight. Darren looked genuinely moved, as if he had witnessed true readiness. Junie held the sock like a flag. "I carry it in case life gets weird," she said simply, as if that explained everything. "And life does get weird," she added, "so I like to be ahead of it by one sock." Caleb let out a laugh that was quiet but real, the kind of laugh that loosened the muscles around his ribs. "Respect," he said, because it felt like the correct response. Darren nodded with equal seriousness. Junie continued, "Sometimes it's for cold feet." "Sometimes it's for a spill." "Sometimes it's a tiny towel." "And sometimes," she said, lowering her voice, "it's just proof that I can handle minor chaos." Mrs. Delaney pressed a hand to her chest as if deeply touched by this philosophy. "That is very wise," she said, and she sounded like she meant it. Caleb glanced at the button panel again, then chose not to press anything this time. He could tell the elevator was still thinking about it. In the meantime, the club had officially formed, and it had a surprisingly soothing energy. "Okay," Caleb said, "my comfort thing is not an object." He paused because he didn't want to make the moment heavy, only human. It's a tiny story. Junie's eyes softened further. Darren leaned in a fraction attentive. Mrs. Delaney held her peppermint pouch closer, like they were all preparing for a bedtime tale. Caleb cleared his throat lightly. "When I'm nervous," he said, "I pretend the situation is a very boring documentary." He lifted his hand, gesturing gently at the elevator walls. "Like," he continued, "tonight's episode is titled, 'Four Sleepy Adults Pause Between Floors Without Any Real Drama.'" Junie covered her mouth to hide a laugh, but it still escaped through her fingers. Darren chuckled and shook his head as if he couldn't believe how much he needed that sentence. Mrs. Delaney smiled warmly. "I would watch that documentary," she said. "With subtitles," she added, "because I like a calm viewing experience." The elevator remained still, but the mood now felt like a tiny living room. The kind where you might share a snack, or pass around a remote, or laugh quietly so you don't wake anyone. Caleb felt his shoulders loosen even more, and he realized the tightness had been there long before the elevator stopped. "Since we're a club," Darren said, "do we have to share survival stories?" He said it like a question, but it sounded like he hoped the answer was yes. Caleb nodded. "Absolutely," Caleb said, "but only the very low-stakes kind." Junie lifted a finger as if she had been born ready for low-stakes survival. "I survived a long line at the post office last week," she announced. Mrs. Delaney gasped softly, theatrical and pleased. Junie continued. "It looped around the rope barrier like a theme park ride, and someone dropped a roll of stamps. She made her voice dramatic in a gentle way, like a bedtime comedian. "I stayed calm," Junie said, "by reading the tiny pamphlets on the counter about how to mail a package safely." Darren nodded like that was true bravery. Caleb smiled because the story was ridiculous and deeply comforting. Mrs. Delaney lifted her peppermint pouch again. "I survived a mismatched Tupperware lid," she said, and her tone carried the weight of a household mystery. It was the correct lid in spirit, but not in shape. Darren let out a quiet laugh that sounded like a snort he tried to politely contain. Mrs. Delaney continued, "I tried 3 times, and each time it made that sound that says no thank you. She mimicked the sound with her mouth, a tiny judgmental plastic squeak. "How did you survive?" Caleb asked, playing along like a good host. Mrs. Delaney smiled. "I wrapped it in foil and called it a day," she said, "and I slept beautifully." Junie sighed happily, like that was the kind of wisdom she wanted embroidered on a pillow. Darren held up the potato stress ball as if it were applauding. Caleb felt a warm ease spread through him. The ease that comes when nobody is trying to impress anyone. Darren went next, clearing his throat. "I survived a forgotten password," he said, and he sounded genuinely haunted. "It asked me security questions from a version of myself who clearly had more confidence." Caleb laughed softly. Junie murmured, "Oh no," in a sympathetic tone that was still amused. Mrs. Delaney pressed her lips together as if holding back a supportive giggle. "I finally got in," Darren said, "because I remembered I always pick the same answer when I'm tired." He paused. "It was peppermint, by the way." Mrs. Delaney lifted her pouch like a champion. "Peppermint saves lives," she declared gently. Caleb nodded with mock seriousness. The elevator's silence now felt less like waiting and more like resting. It was still between floors, but it no longer felt like a trap. It felt like an accidental pause someone had scheduled on purpose. Caleb glanced at the panel again and noticed the small emergency call button, then decided not to touch it yet. Something about the calm air suggested this really would be brief. And even if it wasn't, the 2-minute club was oddly well equipped. Junie shifted the folded sock in her hands, then tucked it back into her bag like it had completed its duty. Darren returned the potato stress ball to his pocket with a fond pat. Mrs. Delaney closed her peppermint pouch and held it lightly like a small lantern. Caleb felt a surprising affection for this little group of nearly strangers. He realized that for months they had shared hallways and doors and polite nods without ever sharing anything real. Now they had peppermint and potatoes and a sock, and somehow that counted as real. He listened to the faint hum of the elevator's fan and the even softer sound of everyone breathing. No one was panicking. No one was raising their voice. They were simply there, together, in a tiny metal box, proving that the smallest inconveniences could still hold kindness. Caleb's chest felt looser, his mind less noisy, as if the elevator had stopped his thoughts too. He wondered briefly if this was what people meant when they said community mattered. Just then, the elevator gave another small shiver, like it was clearing its throat. The group went quiet, not with fear, but with curious attention. Caleb smiled faintly, already feeling steadier than he had when the doors first closed. "Okay," he said softly, as if speaking to the elevator itself. "Whenever you're ready." And in the gentle glow of the ceiling light, with peppermint in the air, and a potato in a hoodie pocket, and a sock waiting in a tote bag, the moment remained cozy enough to hold them for as long as it needed to. Caleb noticed how the elevator had turned into a tiny pocket of peace, and he wanted to keep it that way for whatever seconds remained. He didn't want anyone's nervous system to get ideas. He didn't want the quiet to tip back into that dramatic kind of stillness. So he cleared his throat softly, like he was speaking in a library, and raised one hand in a gentle, mock-serious gesture. Okay, 2-minute elevator survival club, he said. New agenda item. Since we're still on our staycation, we might as well do a calm down ritual. Junie's eyes brightened as if she loved rituals that required zero supplies. Darren's shoulders lowered like his body was already agreeing. Mrs. Delaney nodded as if she had been waiting her whole life for a calm-down ritual inside an elevator. Caleb spoke slowly, so the pace of his voice could do some of the work. One slow breath in, he said, one slow breath out. And then one comforting thought. Nobody argued. Nobody joked it away. They simply followed along like a group of sleepy birds settling onto the same branch. Caleb inhaled through his nose, quietly and evenly, as if he were breathing in warm air from a mug. He held it for just a moment, not forcing anything, just pausing. Then he exhaled slowly, letting his shoulders soften as the air left his body. Junie mirrored him, her breath small and careful, like she didn't want to disturb the calm they had made. Darren exhaled with a faint sound of relief, like he had been holding his day in his lungs without realizing it. Mrs. Delaney's breath moved out of her gently, like steam leaving a kettle that had finally been taken off the heat. The elevator was still not moving, but now the stillness felt intentional, like a soft blanket laid over the moment. Caleb nodded, satisfied. "Okay," he said, comforting thought. Mrs. Delaney lifted her cloth pouch again, as if the thought could be carried in it. "Mine is easy," she said. "I'm going to make tea when I get upstairs, and I'm going to use the good mug." Junie smiled, and the smile looked like a warm lamp turning on. "That's an excellent thought," she said. Darren nodded like the good mug was a wise life choice. Caleb found himself imagining a mug too, something heavy and warm in his hands, and he felt his chest ease. He hadn't realized how much his body craved small comforts. It felt strangely powerful to admit it. Darren went next, holding the potato stress ball in his palm like it was a tiny pet. "My comforting thought," he said, "is that this potato has survived being squeezed approximately 1,000 times. And it still bounces back." Junie let out a quiet laugh that sounded like a gentle hiccup. Mrs. Delaney pressed her lips together, trying not to laugh too loudly, and failed in the sweetest way. Caleb smiled and felt something in him unclench. Junie tapped her tote bag where the spare sock rested, like it was a loyal teammate. "My comforting thought," she said, "is that I am ahead of life by one sock." "And honestly, that feels like winning." Caleb's smile widened. Darren exhaled another laugh. Mrs. Delaney nodded like she had just been given a motto to live by. Caleb took his turn, and he chose something gentle, something that didn't require bravery. "My comforting thought," he said, "is that we're fine." And even if we're mildly inconvenienced, we can handle mild things. He said it with the quiet certainty of someone trying to teach his own nervous system a new language. It worked a little. He felt it work in his shoulders, in his stomach, in the way his jaw rested. Darren looked at Caleb with a small, grateful expression. Junie's eyes softened. Mrs. Delaney made a sound like a gentle agreement. Caleb glanced at the panel, then decided to keep the calm going rather than poke at buttons again. "Since we're still in our ritual era," he said, "we should trade comfort items." "Not permanently," he added quickly. "Just share the vibe." Mrs. Delaney perked up, delighted by the phrase, "share the vibe." She loosened the drawstring of her pouch and held it out again. Peppermint aromatherapy, she announced like it was an official service. Junie leaned in first and took a slow inhale, her shoulders dropping as if a tiny weight had slid off. It's like my brain hears the word peppermint and decides to behave, she said softly. Darren inhaled next and nodded like he had been convinced by science. Caleb breathed in last, and the scent felt bright and clean, like a small light turning on in a dark room. It didn't wake him up. It just made everything feel clearer and safer. Darren offered the potato stress ball to the group like a sacred object, which was funny and also somehow appropriate. Potato check-in, he said. Junie took it and squeezed once, then twice, as if confirming its emotional support credentials. It's ridiculous, Junie whispered. It's also weirdly effective, she added, and her voice held genuine wonder. Mrs. Delaney accepted the potato next, squeezed it, and sighed like she had been waiting for permission to be soothed by something silly. Caleb took the potato last, and for a moment he just held it. He noticed how the simple texture anchored him to the present. He noticed how his mind stopped racing because his hand had something calm to do. That, Caleb said, is the least threatening object I've ever met. Darren grinned. Junie nodded solemnly, as if they had all reached an agreement with the potato. Junie reached into her tote bag and pulled out the folded sock again, presenting it like a tiny celebrity. Mrs. Delaney gasped softly, delighted. Darren laughed under his breath. Caleb looked at the sock and raised his eyebrows. There it is, he said, the hero of the hour. Junie gave a small bow. It should have a name, Darren said, and his voice carried the kind of sleepy seriousness that made everything funnier. Mrs. Delaney leaned in. Junie looked pleased, like she had hoped someone would finally appreciate her sock philosophy. Caleb tilted his head thoughtfully, as if naming the sock was the most important task in the building. Something dignified, he said. Something that says, I'm here for you, and also I might be used as a tiny towel. Junie laughed quietly. Mrs. Delaney suggested, Sir Sockington, with the confidence of someone who named things often. Darren suggested Captain Emergency, which made Caleb snort softly. Junie considered the sock, then said, I think it's just sock. She shrugged. Like Cher, she added, and the elevator filled with gentle laughter that felt like warm air. Caleb wiped at the corner of his eye like he might have laughed too hard, even though it was only a little. Sock is appointed official elevator mascot, he declared. Mrs. Delaney nodded like she was witnessing a historic moment. The laughter faded into a comfortable quiet, and in that quiet, Caleb realized something. He realized he didn't know their names. Not really. He had been nodding at these people for months, like they were part of the wallpaper of his life. He looked at Darren first, because Darren seemed the easiest place to start. By the way, Caleb said gently, I'm Caleb. He offered his hand in a small, polite way that didn't demand contact, just connection. Darren blinked, then smiled like he was glad someone had opened this door. I'm Darren, he said, and he shook Caleb's hand briefly, warmly. Caleb realized he had been calling him Hoodie Astronaut in his head, which now felt unfairly impersonal. Junie lifted her hand like she was in a classroom. I'm Junie, she said, even though Caleb already knew that one because everyone did. Junie's name fit her perfectly, like a soft sweater. Mrs. Delaney smiled and said, "And I'm Margaret," like she was handing them a secret that wasn't actually secret at all. Caleb nodded with respect. "Margaret," he repeated, and he liked how it sounded in the space, grounded and kind. Margaret tucked her peppermint pouch away like it had completed its mission for now. Darren patted his pocket where the potato lived. Junie folded sock neatly again, like a mascot deserved proper care. For a moment, nobody spoke. Not because there was nothing to say, but because the quiet felt soft and safe. It felt like a tiny room where it was okay to be human. Then Darren cleared his throat. "Honestly," he said, "this is the calmest I've felt all week." He tried to say it casually, but the truth slipped through anyway. Caleb's expression softened immediately, and he kept his response light, like a warm blanket rather than a heavy conversation. "That's a big week," Caleb said gently. Junie nodded, her eyes kind. Margaret spoke in the way people speak when they want to offer comfort without asking for details. "I'm sorry your week has been hard," she said. "And I'm glad you're here with us for this silly little pause." Junie added, "You don't have to carry it alone in the elevator, at least." Her voice was soft, almost playful, but the warmth underneath it was real. Darren exhaled like he had been holding tension behind his ribs, and it finally had somewhere to go. Caleb offered the smallest nod, a wordless signal that said, "We see you." He didn't ask questions that would turn the moment into a confession. He simply let Darren's honesty be held by the calm they had made together. Darren looked down at his shoes, then back up, and his voice grew lighter again. "I think I needed peppermint and a potato," he said. and a sock named Cher. Junie smiled. Margaret chuckled softly. Caleb's laugh was quiet and steady, like a friendly engine. The elevator seemed to listen, as if it had waited until the moment was properly softened. It gave a tiny shudder, then a polite mechanical sigh. The floor numbers blinked again, resuming their slow climb like nothing had happened. A gentle ding chimed overhead, not loud, just cheerful, like a small bell at a shop door. Junie lifted her eyebrows as if the elevator had finished a performance. Darren whispered, "Bravo," under his breath. Margaret smiled. Caleb felt his body relax in a new way, the way it relaxes after you realize you were safe the whole time. The elevator glided up and stopped at the next floor with perfect manners. The doors slid open, revealing the quiet hallway like a stage curtain parting. Warm carpet, soft light, and the familiar hush of late evening welcomed them back. For a moment, none of them moved, as if they didn't want to break the spell. Then Caleb stepped out first, slow and easy. Junie followed, holding her tote bag close like it contained a tiny community. Darren came next, and he looked lighter, like someone had loosened a strap he didn't know was tight. Margaret stepped out last, turning slightly toward the elevator as if she might thank it. Instead, she looked at Caleb and said, "Good night, Caleb," using his name like a small gift. Caleb felt something warm bloom in his chest. "Good night, Margaret," he replied, and the hallway suddenly felt less anonymous. Junie waved and said, "Night, Darren," and Darren waved back like he belonged here. It was a small exchange, but it changed the shape of the building. Caleb turned toward his own apartment door, then paused and glanced back. He didn't want to let the moment end without a final thread of humor to tie it off. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked, voice light, like a joke, like a wish. Darren surprised himself by answering immediately. "Honestly," he said, "I'd show up." Junie laughed softly. Margaret nodded, amused and pleased. "Only if the mascot is present," she said, meaning Sock, and somehow that made Caleb grin even wider. Junie patted her tote bag. "Sock goes where I go," Junie said solemnly. They shared one last quiet laugh, and then they drifted to their doors like people floating back into their own warm rooms. Caleb unlocked his apartment and stepped inside with a softness he hadn't had earlier. Later, as he washed his hands and moved through his small nighttime routine, the memory stayed with him like a gentle nightlight. He thought about peppermint and potatoes and the strange comfort of a sock. He thought about how the building had always been full of people, but tonight it had felt full of neighbors. The next evening, Caleb left his apartment a little earlier than usual, not rushing, just curious. He walked toward the elevator with the faintest hope that something kind might happen again. The hallway smelled like someone's clean laundry and someone else's dinner, ordinary and reassuring. When he reached the elevator area, he noticed something new taped neatly beside the buttons. It was a small sign written in careful, friendly handwriting on a piece of pale paper. Two tiny pieces of tape held it like it mattered. The sign read, 2-Minute Calm Club, Comfort Items Welcome. Underneath, in smaller letters, someone had added, "Mascots encouraged." Caleb stared at it, and then his grin arrived before he could stop it. He imagined Margaret writing it at her kitchen table, peppermint tea nearby. He imagined Junie contributing the mascot line with full sincerity. He imagined Darren, in his hoodie, feeling seen enough to want this little club to exist again. Caleb stood there for a long moment, just letting the warmth spread through him. The tiniest delay had created the sweetest little community moment, and the building felt different because of it. It felt softer, friendlier, like a place where people could pause without fear. The elevator doors opened with a quiet hush, and Caleb stepped inside alone this time. He looked at the panel, then at the reflection of his own tired face in the shiny metal. He lifted his hand and gave the air a small ceremonial wave as if greeting the club. One slow breath in, he whispered to himself. One slow breath out. And one comforting thought. His comforting thought came easily. It was the simple idea that kindness could appear anywhere, even between floors, even in 2 minutes, even when life felt heavy. And as the elevator began to rise with steady calm, Caleb carried that thought with him like a warm mug in both hands, letting it lull him gently toward the quiet end of the night.